Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff,
And I'm Linda.
and welcome to the Paranormal Pub Table, where we talk about the paranormal at a pub table. Now, this week's question of the week: How do I know if my house is haunted?
Ooh, yeah.
Now, this may seem like a question that, Jeff, why are you asking this? Like, my house is haunted if I have ghosts in it, right?
Yeah.
But the question comes about, in most cases,
Right.
it's not quite as apparent as they make it look on TV.
Not quite as cut and dry.
No, it's not that you physically see these apparitions appearing in front of you.
Right.
It's not that you physically hear these voices talking to you.
Yes.
It's sometimes something a lot more subtle
It is.
from what we've experienced.
Right.
And it causes people to question their sanity, for one, because many
Yeah.
of the calls we get, people say, look, nothing's really bothering me.
Right.
I just want to know if there's something here,
Yes.
if I'm going crazy, or if there's a natural explanation for it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The people that usually call us, they give us various reports. But for the most part, they seem to follow a theme. It's, footsteps down the hallway in the middle of the night. They hear some movement upstairs when they're downstairs, whether it be footsteps or sometimes it sounds like they say furniture is moving upstairs when no one else up there. There's a lot of different noises, a lot of different things that they hear, keys or items that they use on a regular basis being moved from one place to another is a common symptom, I'd say, of a haunting. And and people also talk about some strange occurrences as far as seeing shadows. You know, is kind of a common thing. I see shadows out of the corner of my eye. I see movement. I see what looks like a figure moving past, and it always looks like a dark, kind of a shadowy figure.
Absolutely. And when we take on an investigation, we always keep an open mind.
We do.
This place is going to be haunted, or it's not going to be haunted.
Right.
There's going to be a rational explanation for it.
Yes.
One thing we always recommend to our clients is that they keep a running log, a journal of any activity that they experience, even
Right.
things that they think there's a natural explanation for. Just jot down what happens, when it happens, where you
Yes.
are when it happens, and see if there's any kinds of patterns
Exactly.
between what's going on, because patterns can do two things. They can help us find a rational explanation,
Absolutely.
because there's something that's kicking on at that time of night, or every so many hours there's
Right.
HVAC that's kicking on. There's various things
Yeah.
that are happening throughout the house that we can pinpoint. Or if it is something paranormal, we can kind of pinpoint when the activity is happening,
Yes.
and therefore determine the best time to do an investigation.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I don't hear from any other investigators, any other investigative team that I think is probably so significant. It's being able to keep a log of the paranormal activity that they experience, what time of day, what day of the week that it's occurring, and even things like their moods during the day and that it occurs, I think is so very important to being able to discern if this is something that is occurring because of an environmental factor or a day of the week or something of that nature, rather than just something, random. And I like the fact that we can tell people, hey, keep a log, and they can keep a log of this activity between the time when we speak to them initially and set up that investigation and the time when we actually get out to them to investigate. It gives them something to do in the meantime. And I really like that. I like that aspect of it.
Absolutely. Now, if you do suspect you have activity, you may contact a paranormal investigator.
Absolutely.
And some of the things we'll ask when we contact somebody to try to determine if the house is haunted.
Right.
We'll want to determine also when these hauntings started.
Yes.
So, how long have you lived in the house? Okay, this is one thing to think about. Now, when you moved into that house, was there activity immediately kicking up as
Yeah.
soon as you moved in, or did you live there for some time before it started?
Occurred.
And this is an important factor in determining if your house is haunted or not.
Yes.
Because if you just move in and you're feeling strange sensations, you're hearing strange sounds,
Right.
it's possible that these are natural elements that came with the house.
Yes.
We've been to houses where people have moved in and said, I feel like there's something attacking me in this house.
Right.
I'm getting headaches all the time. I'm feeling lightheaded. I'm feeling dizzy, especially when I'm up on the second floor.
Right.
And we found that this was a place that was particularly concentrated with high EMF levels.
Yes.
Now, people may say, well, if it's EMF levels, there's ghosts, right? Or it's giving ghosts the ability to manifest.
Right.
We don't know that. There's no definite connection to that. Though a lot of paranormal people will tell you there is.
Yeah.
There's no definite connection to EMF levels in the spirits.
Right. It's all theory.
Right. But what there is a connection to is high EMF levels and the impact that it has on humans.
Exactly.
It can cause you, high EMF levels, exposure to this for long periods of time, can cause you to feel dizzy.
Right.
Can cause you to feel lightheaded. So these sensations that you're getting that you think may be paranormal, maybe that you moved into a house that needs some electrical work done.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also keep in mind, moving into a new house, we're not always used to the sounds that occur.
Right.
We're not always used to the thumps in the night, the house settling noises.
Absolutely.
These could be things that didn't occur at our old house, and the house we moved into, it has these sounds, and this is where it comes in to pinpoint these sounds, to keep this log to find out when it's happening.
Yeah, that's right.
And see if you can determine the source of it.
Yes.
A lot of times at night, it cools down. Things will contract.
Yeah.
And in this, the house will settle. The boards will contract.
Right. Right.
And also you have the summer, the winter, when you have the HVAC on.
Absolutely.
Okay. The house may make some noises that your old house did not.
Right.
When the AC is on, the pipes will contract. When the heat is on, they'll expand.
Yes.
And this can cause some popping and cracking noises
Yeah.
down below the floorboards and within the walls that we're not really used to.
Right.
So this is why we bring about the question, how long have you lived in the house? Well, not only that, because if there's not a rational explanation for it, and the house is indeed haunted, if it's been since the time you moved in, if it started when you moved into this house, it also helps us to determine that this haunting is attached to the house. It's attached to the property.
As opposed to the person.
As opposed to the person.
Yes.
Right. If this is something that has been happening all your life, then it could very well be something that's drawn to you.
Absolutely. And there are, we've told people before, there are people that are haunted. There are houses that are haunted. There is land that is haunted. And there are objects that are haunted. And the reason we tell people this is because they have to understand that something like a piece of jewelry that you wear all of your life, when you die, that piece of jewelry has already been sort of imbued with your energy for the entire length of your life. The same thing with mirrors. Mirrors are another one of those objects that we tell people don't buy secondhand, because mirrors are something that people will look in repeatedly, day after day after day after day, to check their appearance. And then through the course of their lives, after a while, they may get rid of this mirror. They may pass away. It's sold in an estate sale. And then all of a sudden you have this mirror in your house that you think is beautiful, that you bought at this estate sale. And there it is with this image of this person sitting in it. And you think, okay, my house is haunted, right? People's land can be haunted. We've been into tons of houses that are new construction or fairly new construction, I would say, and that they say, why is my house haunted? Like, it's new. I don't understand exactly why this is happening, because the land that it sits upon has been, has seen a lot. It's been through a lot of history in its day. So the land can be haunted. Sometimes it's a house, the old house, the very, very old house that we find sometimes, your typical haunted house that you see on videos, on shows. There are these old Victorian houses that have been there since, like, let's say, the 1800s. Yes, they're filled with a lot of history. There's been lives led and people that have died within that home, and a lot of activity in between, in the sake of people experiencing life, having emotions, extreme of emotions in this house. That all absorbs itself into the home itself. And so that's why you have houses. That's why you have properties. That's why you have objects that are haunted. But also, what is more interesting is the fact that people can be haunted. For one reason or another, there's various reasons why I think people can be haunted. But for some reason, spirits can attach themselves to certain people more than they do others. And it may be that a person is a sensitive, that they can, sort of read the environment, read the energies, that they can experience people or spirits talking to them and trying to communicate with them more than other people do. And for that reason only, you can be sort of a beacon in the night, is what we tell people.
Absolutely. The reason that another thing with asking when did you move into the house is because if you moved into the house and the activity hasn't started until months after you've moved in,
right?
There's a couple of possibilities here. Some certain things lay dormant for a while.
Yes.
But also, what happened at that time when the activity kicked up? Was there something that you brought into the house?
Right.
This could determine that the object had an attachment. Was there someone that you were close to that passed away?
Right.
Was there somebody that came into the house that could have been part of something of the occult?
Absolutely.
And could have brought something in with them?
Yes.
So we try to pinpoint when this happened and what were the circumstances around that time that this happened.
Right.
Now, I got to say, or I got to ask, if somebody's saying, I'm having these strange experiences, and a lot of the calls we get, a lot of times it's subtle, like things will go missing.
Yeah.
I'll hear these strange sounds. It's not, like I said, it's not like they're seeing these full-on apparitions. It's not like they're even hearing voices.
Right.
It's just certain strange sounds and misplaced items.
Yeah.
In that case, how do they tell if their house is indeed haunted?
Well, of course, psychology plays a big part in this too. And as investigators, we're not always psychiatrists. We're not always the people that psychologically we can evaluate people and determine whether or not they're forgetful, or even whether or not the medication that they're taking is something that causes them to be able to put down an object and forget where they put it. So that's one of those things that it's kind of one of those factors that's sort of up in the air that we have to take into account, that it might be like the wild card in the investigation. Okay, is there other things that we don't know about, or that we don't know, have a full knowledge of, that are going to play a part in this? And I would definitely look at the history of the location, whether it be the property, the home, what has occurred on that land, what has occurred in that home, and other things. For instance, have you experienced paranormal activity in previous homes that you've lived in as well, to determine whether or not this is actually a haunting, or whether it's actually just a fluke. I put down things, and I go back and I think I put them in a certain place. And then you think, okay, did something move these things? And it's not necessarily that something moved them. It's just that you forgot where you put it down. You think you put it in one place, but you actually put it in another. That occurs to even the most sane, clearest of minded, people around, because let's face it, life is busy. Life is, got you running with different thoughts in your mind all the time. You've got work, you've got family, you've got the home itself, and it's very easy to sort of set something down, or to think that you've heard something when you didn't.
Absolutely. And when we come in, we're there to kind of diagnose, to see what we can find, if we can find any evidence of the paranormal, or if we can find a natural explanation. And our first thing that we want to do when we go in is, after taking the claims of the paranormal activity, we want to go about the house and we want to see if there's any way we can debunk what's been happening, if there's any rational explanation for it. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because you want to tell if your house is haunted. It's never a good idea to do an investigation at your own house, because we've heard some horror stories about that, where people would try to start communicating with the spirits that were there, and they opened up doorways that they wish they hadn't opened. Activity kicked up, and the spirit that they welcomed to talk to them didn't stop talking to them. But so I'll say it from a paranormal investigation standpoint. For one, what you want to do is you want to contact somebody to come in. You don't want to do this at your own house.
No.
But we'd go in a diagnostic mode, and we try to rule out any rational explanation for the activity that's happening. And once we've gone about and we've said, okay, based on the reports and based on the setup of the house, we can't find any rational explanation that what they're saying actually happened. That's when we turn to the paranormal. And we'll go through and we'll start doing some recordings. We'll do some EVP sessions. We'll see if we can get anything that's there to interact with us through the various equipment that we'll use, the various methods. And sometimes we'll be able to get something right off the bat during the investigation that kind of leads us to believe there's a little more here than a natural explanation. There's definitely something paranormal, or most likely, I won't say definitely, but there's most likely something paranormal here. At least something that we can't explain. But in some cases, we won't be able to rationalize the reports, and we won't get a single bit of evidence of the paranormal.
Yes, that's right.
So in this case with these people, they're living in this and dealing with it. And really, some of them are thinking, hey, I think I'm about to check myself into a mental institution because I feel like I'm going insane. You guys aren't getting any evidence. I'm hearing these sounds that there's no explanation for. That's when it becomes a tough situation.
It really does. And we tell people time and time again that, we are in your home for a fraction of the time that you spend in your home. You may be home on disability. You may be there 24/7. And we're there for a matter of a couple of hours on a Saturday night, perhaps. The chances of us experiencing paranormal activity are pretty nil, unless we spend hours and hours and hours and hours, or even sometimes days there. If we were able to spend maybe an entire weekend at some locations, perhaps we would experience that paranormal activity where we didn't, in this small 4-hour time frame of time that we were actually in the location. And just because we don't experience something at that small time frame that we're in there doesn't necessarily mean that your house is not haunted, and it doesn't mean that we don't believe you by any means. There's been lots of people that we felt were credible, that we felt were the type of people that were telling us the absolute truth. They really truly believed that these things were occurring, but it just happened that we weren't there at the right time.
Absolutely. Now, in this, it brings about the question, okay, that we started with: how do I tell if my house is haunted? As far as the very basic, how do I tell if my house is haunted? The first thing we want to do, rule out any rational explanation for what's going on. Make sure there's no explanation for it. If you're hearing strange sounds throughout the house, there's a various number of things it could be.
Yes, and that's kind of difficult, I have to say, for most normal people. Most normal people don't know the ins and outs of the electrical systems in their home, the HVAC systems in their homes. Debunking is one of those things that requires you to have sort of a very well-rounded knowledge about the structure of the home, the systems within the home, and the way that they function.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if it comes to the point where you can't find any rational explanation for it, don't automatically think that your house is haunted. I would say clear indicators that the house is haunted is when you start hearing voices that there's no one around.
Yes.
When you start seeing figures move in the night that you can't explain.
Yes.
And especially when you start being physically touched by something that's there. Now, when this arises, and even in the earlier stages, if there's something that you're questioning, don't hesitate to call a paranormal investigator. Get somebody out there to check it out. Don't do it at your own house. Don't ask the questions at your own house because you don't want those answers to keep coming forever. Right? So don't ask those questions, but get somebody out there to see if there's any further evidence other than the sounds that you're hearing or the thumps in the night. But like I said, the clear indicator is once you cross that line between it being just strange sounds that occur here and there and maybe some misplaced stuff to it actually being things that you're hearing and seeing that are definite indicators.
And there are a couple of reasons I would say why it's bad for you to investigate your own home. And this is one of those things that a lot of people don't really understand. They don't look too far into it. They think, well, if I can get a digital voice recorder and start running it all night and try to figure out, ask a couple questions, do my own EVP session in my living room, what's the harm in that? And this is one of those things that's very difficult to explain to people because there are a couple of factors here. If you are investigating your own home, perhaps you do have a spirit there. This spirit has been dead for a long time. They are desperate to try to get their message across or to say something that they feel needs to be said. And if that's the case, they are going to hound you and hound you and hound you. If they think that for a second that you're starting to pay attention to them, that you're realizing that they're actually existing within your home with you, and that you're trying to listen to what they say, sometimes they're so desperate that they focus solely upon that. And it seems that that's all they want to do is try to start messing with you. It really amps up the activity. On the other side of the coin, you have the fact that this could be something demonic. And if you are sometimes paying too much attention to the paranormal, whether it be a paranormal show or investigating your own home, if this is something that is demonic, there's a chance that this thing could see this as a window of opportunity to come into your life and to start messing with you even more than it was before. And things could, again, sort of ramp up, get a little bit worse than they were before. And I feel like that's an important thing to say because a lot of people don't, like I said, understand why they can't investigate their own home. They say, well, if you can pull out a digital voice recorder and ask questions, why can't I? Well, the difference is that you live there on a daily basis, every day, and a day in, day out. We just come for a couple of hours and then we're gone. And the chances of something attaching itself to us is far less than it attaching itself to you because it thinks that you're listening to it.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, a couple ways to tell if your house is haunted. If you have any questions, like I said, reach out to Paranormal Investigator. We'd love to hear from people that have lived in a haunted house.
Absolutely.
Or that have questioned if their house is haunted or not.
Yes.
Just so you know, if you're not watching us on YouTube, we have the podcast going. It's on some various podcast sites. I know Spotify is one, and Amazon is another one. Just ask Alexa to play the Paranormal Pub Table podcast.
Yes.
And you'll hear us come up there. And you may immediately turn it off. I don't know. Some people might. But check that out. And if you're listening to the podcast, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Virginia Paranormal.